You are listening to Accents, a radio show for literature, art, and culture. I'm your host, Katerina Stoikova, and my guest is teacher, writer, poet, actor, radio host, musician, supporter of the arts, marvelous human being, my friend, Leif Erickson. How are you, Leif?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure to be here.
And could you introduce yourself to
Sure,
our listeners and viewers?
absolutely. Whose bio this is, I think I know. Leif Erickson was born some time ago. He will not brag, at least for now, but he does a lot of cool stuff, you know? His word processor must think it queer to feel him type, yet not come near to listing all the things he's done or his friends and loved ones far and near. But he believes that life is sweet. He has clothes and food to eat. No sky above, no earth beneath his feet. No sky above, no earth beneath his feet.
That's amazing. Good to
Well,
know
thank
you,
you.
Leif.
Thank you. It's good to know you.
Yeah.
And hello to
Leif,
your audience.
yeah. Leif Erickson. Tell us about your name.
Well, my father was drunk when he named me. True story. And he was drunk from 1960 to 80 inclusively. He's been sober now since 1980. He's still alive, sober. So very proud of
Yeah,
him.
that's big.
But he was drunk when he named me, and he said he didn't want every kid in the neighborhood to come running when he called me in for dinner. So Leif Erickson. My mother had the privilege of naming the first child, my brother Todd. So he had the right to name the second child. She wasn't crazy about it, but here we are. So that's
Okay.
my first and middle name, and I generally don't use the last name because Leif Erickson. So
No, that is memorable and awesome, and it suits you well.
thank you.
So, and recently, for the last, I don't know, a year or a few,
Hmm.
a year or so, you've been co-hosting my favorite show ever, Trivial Thursdays.
It's been more than that, actually. It's been several years, actually. It started a
Okay,
few years ago.
I've known
Yeah.
it, for
Okay.
a year only. Yeah, tell us
uh,
about that.
yeah, well, I was a long time listener to the show because Mick has been hosting it forever.
Yeah.
And I came on a few times to promote things and talk about arts and stuff. And then I don't remember if I suggested it or he did, hey, you want to come just hang out on the show? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I did that a few times. And one day he goes, you know, I've been looking for a female co-host for a long time. And I think you just may be the girl I've been looking for. And I was like, excellent, sign me up. So here we are. I started doing it and we found out we have a lot of radio chemistry between us. And it's a lot of fun. I
It's
love
been
it.
great to listen to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I do think that Mick deserves a medal for
Mhm,
doing the show for as long as he has. And,
mhm.
and so you guys continuing to do it live? Tell us about how
Yes.
that works.
Oh man, it's been an adjustment, really. And now we've hit a stride, and I like the way the show is going. We're having different listeners because we had to move the time to Thursdays at 10 o'clock, WRFL, 10 to 12. And so we started Zooming, and Mick really got into it, and he's using UK's resources there through the wonderful Ben Allen, helping. He's the head of the station. I forget your title, Ben, sorry, but he's great. And he's been, really instrumental in getting us off the ground. Very, very supportive. Everybody there has been very supportive. And Mick, like I said, has really put the work in. He's given me extra assignments and tasks. It's sort of taken on a new life by switching to Zoom in ways you wouldn't have predicted, I think. I didn't anyway.
And how is your writing, Cliff?
Well, here's the thing. I've come to forgive myself during the semesters because I do a lot of writing, but it's all in the margins and at the ends of papers that students write. Because I was really down on myself, for a while there a few years ago, like you don't write enough, you don't write enough. I noticed though, when I paid attention, that my writing spiked during the breaks. I wrote a lot during the breaks, but it's just when you're teaching, 5 classes, at least 3 of them composition every semester, it's a lot of reading, and I like to really put my time into it. I don't want to shortchange them. So I put a lot of time into reading and writing responses back to students. So it's like, I am doing a lot of writing, but I'm not doing a lot of creative writing. So I look forward to these times. I just finished classes and I've started doing some creative writing again, some science fiction, some erotic. It's for another show probably. Um, some poetry here and there. It always surprises me when poetry happens, and that's the way I think of it. It happens. I don't understand it. That's why I've never taught poetry. Seems like alchemy to me.
Well, what have you prepared for us to read?
Well, I've prepared a few things. I thought I'd start off with this short story I wrote called Bertram and Barney. And I wrote this as part of some exercises where I was trying to get used to finishing projects, because like a lot of writers, I have a bad habit of leaving things unfinished because I get distracted by other projects.
Yes, yes. I know
So a
what
painter friend, I imagine you do, yeah. So a painter friend of mine suggested, Patrick Smith, the brilliant artist, suggested just offhandedly, he didn't know how much this was going to like really help, that I just write some like 1-page story that's a complete story, and then a 2-page story that's complete story in one sitting. They have to be in one sitting, all the way up to 10 pages. And so occasionally I'll just dip into this method. And so this story came about through that.
Nobody should tell you that 1-page story or even half-page stories also can go unfinished for years.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You can tinker with it forever and not have an ending. Absolutely. The goal with these is to have, even if it's terrible, and some of them have been, but even if it's terrible, the idea is I must have a complete story in one sitting, as close as possible to the page number specified. I pick a number, and it has to be complete, as in have a plot with a beginning, middle, and end, character or characters. It's tough, and I don't always succeed at it, but I like this one. I like the way it came out.
And I'm going to turn off my mic right now for the duration of your reading, and I'll see you on the other side.
All right, I'll let you know when I'm done. Thank you. All right, this first story is called Bertram and Barney. Bertram boarded the bus and placed the burlap sack next to his right foot on the floor. He never withdrew his hand from around the gathered neck of it, even as he sat back, spine unrolling against the cold, hard seat. He groaned with relief. The driver's eyes darted to the long mirror, back to the road. A man in the next row shifted. Bertram reached into his shirt and produced a small spiral notebook. He placed this upon his lap and reached in again for a pen, balancing the small notebook on his knee. He still had not removed his hand from the sack at his feet and did not intend to. The man in the next row shifted again and cleared his throat. The driver's eyes flitted up and back. Bertram realized he could never balance the notebook with one hand and write in it, but he needed to record the morning's findings before he forgot them. Partials only, he muttered, lifting his right foot off the floor of the bus in anticipation of a bump he sensed was coming. The notebook teetered. He stabbed at it with the pen and pressed it against the leg. Partials only. Remember, Bertram. He was louder this time. He glanced around. The stop indicator dinged. The computer voice announced the upcoming stop. Tate's Creek and Malibu, inbound. Be careful entering and exiting. Have a good day. The shifting man stood and walked toward the rear exit of the bus. He glared at Bertram and sneered at the bulging sack at his feet. Bertram tightened his grip. The man exited with a sniff of disgust, and Bertram smiled. He knew better these days. They would have to try harder if they wanted to provoke him. He laughed softly. Only partials today. What other explanation could there be? The driver's eyes flitted. She steered the bus around a tight corner, pulling and pushing at the huge steering wheel like an ancient priestess guiding the sun across the sky. The bus sighed and growled and lurched. Bertram laughed a little louder and suddenly knew how to do it. He reached down and placed the mouth of his sack on the floor and carefully transferred his foot so it replaced his hand. Sack secured. Now he could use both hands to write. He smiled and wrote in block letters on the page, only partials today. He underlined partials and then added another only, period, and underlined it 3 times. He wanted to be clear since he suspected lately they had been monitoring his reports while he slept. He would not be able to communicate the emphasis orally, so he needed to make it understood. He underlined partial and only 1 more time each. He sat back, exhausted and sleepy, smiling. You smell funny, a small voice said to his right. Bertram jumped and almost took his foot off the sack. A small child was sitting next to him, chewing gum and swinging his legs, first together, then one at a time, then together again. Dread settled on Bertram's heart. How close had he come to losing control of the sack? Too close. He gulped and croaked, "Excuse me." "My cat has feet, but she doesn't wear shoes." Bertram looked around to see where the child's parents were, but the bus was empty except for the 2 of them, a nodding old lady in the back and the driver with the nervous eyes. "Are you here to take my report?" Bertram whispered. He felt silly. He did not believe any such thing, but they had been much more unpredictable lately in how they communicated with him, scanning his reports while he slept, for instance. He had turned it over in his mind for weeks and couldn't figure out why they would need to do that rather than talk to him through a cop or a librarian at the downtown branch. Those seemed reliable enough conduits, but Bertram admitted to himself that they knew more than he did. It was a relief to know this, actually. Bertram ground the mouth of the bag beneath his foot and grinned. Secure. None. He glanced at the boy with wise, narrowed eyes and grinned, giggling slightly at the simplicity of it all. He saw that aspect of it more and more every day. Well, not none. Partials, but he turned in his seat to face the child and look him in the eye. Only partials, so basically none. Simple. I understand, the boy said. He jumped up and skipped a couple of steps up the aisle toward the driver, then back toward Bertram. Please sit down, the lady driver said, hugging and wrestling the steering wheel. Her flitting eyes were taut bubbles of suspicion. The boy ignored her, skipping and skipping. Then he stopped, squared his feet, and hopped straight up, slapping a horizontal bar overhead. I can reach it now, he yelled and clapped. The driver's bubble eyes darted and dipped. Children have to remain seated, she said. My mommy says that's not actually in the rules, the child yelled at the driver, suddenly sullen and angry, almost growling. He clenched his fists by his side. It's in my rules. I told her that, the driver whined. Bertram grabbed the notebook from his lap and held it up to the child's face. He wanted to make sure the boy could not only scan it clearly, but that he understood it. It was important. He pointed at each letter. ONLYPARTIALS. That's it. Last time they seemed to completely misunderstand my report. Straight partials. Tell them if they insist on scanning while I'm asleep, maybe they should at least... The boy sat down again. I didn't sit down because she told me to, he said, smiling, chewing. I just sat down because I wanted to. I wanted to smell you again. You smell like salty vegetables and old milk. I like you. He put out his hand. Pleased to meet you. My name is Barney. Bertram reached out to take the boy's hand. The lady driver sniffed and grunted. Barney, you are a mess. That ain't your name, boy. Barney, the boy said loudly, his hand waiting. Bertram reached out to take it. I wouldn't shake his hand if I was you, mister, the driver said. That boy's name ain't Barney, it's Jimmy, and he's a little pickpocket. Not that you look like you'd have much to pick. That wasn't nice, said a voice from the back. Bertram and the boy turned to look at the old lady who was now standing and holding one of the support poles. Sweetie, the old lady said to Bertram, would you please pull the stop cord for me? My shoulders just hurt anymore, and I'd just as soon leave them be. I know you're outdoors, but I've seen you around downtown, and you ain't a bad sort. No matter what some may think. The bus driver snorted and chuckled at the front. The cord, the old lady said, nodding above Bertram's head. The next stop is coming up soon. She knows I need off, but she won't never stop lest somebody pulls the damn cord. Hey, no bad words, the boy yelled, pointing at the old woman. Bertram felt dizzy and like he was made of glass. He didn't know if he could reach the cord himself in his state, but even more to the point, he didn't know if he should. Was this a trick? I spent the whole day canvassing, trust me, he said. I started down on Loudon just like I promised. I know what I'm doing, not a single thing but partials. He began to weep quietly. For a moment, he forgot about the sack. The cord, please, the woman pleaded. She too began to weep. If I miss this stop, I have to ride all day. He ain't right in the head, my mama says, the boy sang, then jumped up on the seat next to Bertram and put a hand on his shoulder. Always carrying that sack of who knows what around. Mama said it ain't never been washed, that's for sure. He hopped up and yanked down on the stop cord, almost pulling it loose. He released it and it snapped up and popped the roof. Too hard, the bus driver cried and began to slow the bus. The recorded robot voice took over, reciting street names and platitudes. Thank you so much, the old woman said to the boy as she shuffled past. No thanks to all of you, she said as she passed Bertram. Bum, she hissed. You're mean, the boy yelled at the old lady's back. I thought old ladies were supposed to be nice. Look, said Bertram, I don't want any trouble. I just want to get back to work. Tell him. I don't care which stop I get off. I can do the work anywhere. The bus stopped and sighed and dipped toward the curb to ease departure. The doors front and rear breathed open, but no one moved. Bertram looked from one to the other. The hazard signal clicked and ticked. I can do the work anywhere. You know that. This isn't necessary. Remember? They were going to trust me this time. I've been good. Please, tell them. Finally, the boy laughed, diving to the floor and snatching at Bertram's sack, which he had completely forgotten about for the time being. I knew he would move his foot if I waited long enough, the boy Yoda laughed, and quick as a wink was on his feet and headed toward the door with the sack. An empty Mountain Dew bottle slipped out of the mouth of the bag and bounced hollowly 3 times before skittering past the old lady and out the door. "Litter bug," the old lady yelled as the boy zipped past her with the sack. He gathered it to his chest so he wouldn't spill anymore and moved his feet like only a young boy can. He disappeared into the crowd. And that's the end of that one. So this is a short poem called Bendy Clips. There you go. We are a couple of bent paper clips, friction at our bendy tips, made to clasp and grasp and fuse, meant to wed intent to muse. Bend me, twist you, intertwine. We paper clips think bending's fine. This next one is, I was inspired by you, Katerina. You write your aphorisms, one of which I always quote, which is everyone deserves love, but no one is entitled to it. I quote that all the time. And so I've started writing down some of my own that I won't claim to be as good as yours, and that's not flattery. I really love them, but I'm working on it. So this is one that I did. I thought I'd read. It's called, well, I don't really have a title for it, but here it is. Erudite and pedantic are neighbors and kin. To know is a virtue. To know you know is a sin. All right, this one is called Primed. It's a poem I wrote a few years ago, but you best picture this if you have like having a beatnik sort of moving bass line beneath, or a trumpet or something, very jazzy. All right. I slide in behind her at an all-night diner. Is this where I check my privilege, I say? She brokers a peace deal with her skirt, turns in her booth, sucks on her tooth, says, "Baby, that ship has sailed." I shudder. That's what she offers? A worn-out semiotic ghost? A limping host? A cliche for my midday? I'd at least hoped for a trope. But still, she's got gams to die for. A fellow would lie, kill, and pilfer. So I forgive the gambit. I admit I've drawn from that linguistic well myself, every once in a blue moon. Meta's the name of that tune, baby. Baby. That reminds me, I'm overreacting maybe, but I'd come to check my privilege after all. And she gets up. That's what she does. And I forget what the subject of my monograph was. She slides in my booth, red of claw and truth, fluid, casual, like water seeking the low places, says, "We are primed to look straight into our own hearts, but we aren't very good at it." And then the last piece I wrote, several months ago, trying to impress a woman, of course. We're good friends. It worked, but it didn't work out for us, and that's cool. But we're still really good friends, and I'm glad for the inspiration, because I said I wanted to imitate some of my favorite writers. So this is with a hat tip to a writer you'll probably recognize if you're familiar with him. But this is called "Please Make a Note of It." It's the last piece I have. So here we go. Oh, there is one word edit because we'll be on the radio waves, so you'll be able to figure out the word. I'm just going to say bleep in place of the word. Just wanted to make that clear. All right, here we go. Please make a note of it. One fine day with no one home, consciousness possessed our rotary phone. 'Twas surely a number of years ago, 'cause phones are electric now, and no bleepy bloopy smarty cell has an old tin can's chance in hell of handling the otherworldly experience of being possessed by thought and sense. But all afternoon while we were out, that crazy dialer pranced about, flaunting his wit for all to see, even brandishing his ontology. The poodle made of glass did sniff and cross his arms and stiffen his lip. "Why, you're no better than the rest of us. I simply do not understand the fuss. Just this morning the toaster popped and the fridge likes running and hasn't stopped. We all have some strange thing to do, and most of us do it better than you." The squat phone chuckled and smiled, unoffended. "I'll say but this, and all will be mended. We are made to decay, to fester and rot. And though I will go first, like as not, I will exit this world with knowledge unnerving of the rancid bleep sandwich existence is serving. That is the difference betwixt me and you lot. I know that death comes, and you simply do not." And so he nodded satisfactorily, smiling so smugly that he didn't see the turntable beginning its languid rounds, hissing out pops and buzzes and sounds. "Not so fast," it sang through the speakers. "Sometimes we return, but cleaned up and neater. Because of nostalgic hipsters, you see. They are the ones who refurbished me. That's not necessarily the final bleak word where young urban whites and rich folks are concerned. Everyone grew grave and silent at that, even the clown in his jaunty top hat. In one fell swoop, they had all been taught it was destiny to die, but then maybe not. Even in the photo that normally smiled, the one of Donald and Lydia and Child, they all looked down at their shoes and sighed, silently wishing the old phone had just lied. The end.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Leif, these were fun.
Yes.
Yeah, all of them, and so yours.
What's that?
So yours. They were so you.
Oh, they were me.
Yeah.
I've been told that that's the case with my writing. I take that as a compliment. I don't know what
Absolutely.
it is.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Be the poet that you are. Be
Right.
the writer that you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if all the poems occur accidentally, I'll go with them. I'll write them down every time.
So can you repeat the one, the epigram, the one that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. I can almost probably do it from memory, but just to make sure. Erudite and pedantic are neighbors and kin. To know is a virtue. To know you know is a sin.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank
yes.
you very much.
Yeah.
That came out of a social media discussion. I don't remember the exact topic, but discussing the difference, and I thought, why not? A rhyme occurred to me, so yeah, it was fun.
It is complete. That if you email it to me, I'll add it to my lecture on very short poems.
Excellent. I absolutely will. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love to.
Thank you so much, Leif.
Thank you for inviting me.
Appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hope to see you soon around town and give you a hug.
Definitely. Thank you, and thank everyone who's listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.